Greetings, Irish fans, and welcome to the fourth edition of our new podcast, Run It Back. This week, we'd like to take you back to February 9th, 2013. The most popular baby names in the U.S. were Noah for boys and Emma for girls. Singer Carole King was celebrating her 71st birthday. And Mike Bray's 25th ranked Fighting Irish were hosting Rick Pitino's 11th ranked Louisville Cardinals in Purcell Pavilion. Since Louisville had joined the Big East back in 2005, the Notre Dame-Louisville basketball rivalry had become one of the best in the conference, if not the country. In fact, 4 of the previous 5 games between the two teams had gone to overtime, and there was every expectation that the two squads would need a little extra time to decide a winner on this night. The ESPN Game Day crew came to Notre Dame for only the second time to bear witness to the event. And what we all ended up seeing was one of the most entertaining and historic games in the history of these two-story basketball programs. Personally, it ranks as the most challenging and enjoyable game that I have ever broadcast, and I am sure that every moment of the game remains etched in the minds of 2 of the best players from that team who are joining us today, Captains Eric Atkins and Jack Cooley. This edition of Run It Back starts right now.
Did it again. Where's he been? Oh, man. In one possession game. One possession game. No timeouts, got a chance to tie it. You think they want Grant to shoot it? He's going to drive it and lay it in. And the foul. And foul the old-fashioned way. And 4 of the last 5 have been OT, baby. Atkins. Big screen by Sherman, leveled by Hannon. Beachside might take it. There's Mr. Beachside. Mr. Beachside can flat out shoot it. I'd get that keyboard today. Atkins forces it up. Sherman has it and hits again. That's just pure guts right there. What a hustle play. What a hustle play. Johnny Hunter moving screen, Sherman. Atkins splits the defense and lays it in. Terrific drive by Atkins. I don't let him shoot the 3. They got him, though. Missed it. What an incredible game.
All right, this is our 4th episode of Run It Back, and we're going to look at the 2013 5 overtime game against Louisville. I've got a couple of former men's basketball players here with me, Eric Atkins and Jack Cooley. Guys, I appreciate you doing this. I'm excited to talk about this game. Before we get started, I just want to check in with both of you, see how you're doing during these times. Let's start with you, Jack. Why don't you tell everybody where you're calling in from today and how things are going?
Well, I'm calling in right now from Okinawa, Japan. This is where I work now. This is where I play. And when this whole quarantine thing happened, we just figured we'd stay because Okinawa is like the Hawaii of Japan. So it's a nice island, and if we're going to be stuck somewhere, we'll be stuck here. And yeah, I re-signed for next season, so they're cool with me staying here. So that's what I'm doing.
It's 10 a.m. or so right now here on the East Coast. What time is it there in Japan?
11 p.m. It's a 13-hour difference.
Thank you for doing this at 11 p.m.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We were trying to find the right time. I guess 10 a.m.
This
11 p.m.
This is a perfect time, so I'm glad you guys picked now because otherwise it would have been just stuffed.
Okay, so. Awesome. And then Eric, where are you, and how are things going with you?
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles, California, with my family, and things are going well. Just enjoying the weather and spending time with the family. So I'm enjoying it. I wish this will all end, but this is some good family time for me.
And we were talking before we started here that you currently are on the Howard coaching staff, right? But because everything kind of shut down, you just went to the opposite coast with better weather.
Yep. As soon as the quarantine got started, I got on a plane and I shot right over here right away. Got to the nice weather, and I've been enjoying it ever since.
All right. So this is a game that since I've been working here, it's been about almost 4 years. I hear people talk about it all the time. I'd seen the highlights here and there, but I hadn't gone back and watched the entire game, specifically the entire set of 5 overtimes. It's amazing that it's almost been, I'm sure you guys, over 7 years since you guys played in this game. I want to go back to even before the game started, though. This is a Saturday primetime game. We were just looking it up. It was a 9:00 start, but College Game Day was there. It was Dan Schulman and Dick Vitale, the big #1 broadcast crew. And you guys were two captains, two leaders on this team. I'll just start with you, Jack. I know you guys were developing a really good rivalry with Louisville at the time, but as you prepared for this game, what was the atmosphere like around campus, and what do you remember about maybe the days and even the hours leading up to this big primetime matchup?
Well, the funny thing was, and you said it, is the rivalry building. Is we played Louisville the last 2-3 years, and every time it went to overtime. And not like I'm exaggerating, like every time it went to overtime. I think the year before we went to double overtime at the Yum Center, and I almost blacked out. Eric played like 50 minutes in a 40-minute game because there were 2 overtimes. I played 42 minutes. And, so we were really excited. And then we had the College Game Day stuff. We did all the – it was different because we did all the events. And Jerian and I did, good teammates, and we had to guess each other's, stuff. Who knows? It was fun, though. It was a good day.
Well, it was actually, I think, 4 of the last 5, they said on the broadcast, had gone to overtime. So this was the 5th of the last 6. And I think they even said 8 of 13, which is insane. EA, specifically with Game Day, what do you remember about that? That's such a unique experience that only so many players get to be a part of. What was unique about that? And it makes that whole game an entire day-long experience, right?
Yeah, I mean, Game Day is a really long day. We go through our normal pregame routine as normal, but with Jack and Jerian being on the court, with Jay Billis and all those guys, watching them go through all the game day activities, we were right on the side watching them, seeing all our fans out there early. It was really just a really neat experience just to see how excited all of our the community of South Bend got behind that game.
You mentioned the rivalry with Louisville going to overtime. This is, of course, 2013 when they won the NCAA championship. I was going back and looking at the roster before I watched the game. It's a pretty loaded team. I think they had 4 or 5 guys that have played in the NBA. I was thinking Peyton Siva had a cup of coffee, but they got Ruff Smith, Gorgie Jang, Montrezl Harrell kind of before he was the Montrezl Harrell we now know. As you guys were preparing for Louisville, what was maybe some of the stuff you talked about in film, whether it's with Coach Bray, the rest of the staff? What were going to be the keys? And you played them so much, you guys are so familiar with them, but what were the keys to playing against a team or this specific Louisville team? And I'll start with you, Jack. Go ahead.
Eric, I was going to say Eric could probably talk about it because what I remember is Peyton Siva and Russ Smith literally just tried to murder him before he crossed half court every single time. And it was a terrible – it looked absolutely awful. It looked terrible because I couldn't even set a relief screen because there was 2 of them. And he just needed to inbound it, pass it, then get it back, and then just fight one-on-one against someone who they're not going to call fouls on because he's Peyton Siva and he just gets all the accolades. So Eric literally needed to scrap for over 40 minutes. And, it was just one of those games where everyone was more athletic than us, but we just knew we had a chance because, I don't know, we just did. It just worked. So it was fun, though. But Eric can talk more because I know those games were miserable.
Yeah, I mean, for us, man, going into it game planning wise, I know we looked at it as, we don't want to make this a super up-tempo game with them. We have to slow them down because that is their game plan, to get up and down, to force turnovers. And for us, we did I think during Coach Bray's tenure, all of his teams, we don't turn the ball over much. So that is part of our identity. So it didn't really change much against them, but we did slow it down a little bit more. We took our time taking the ball out and different things like that. But it was a war getting the ball up the court. It really was. I always tell people they kind of cheated the system, not in a bad way, but they fouled you so much that they couldn't call everything.
Yeah.
So, you're coming up the court, getting hit, first 5 times that may not affect you, but, the 6th time I may lose the ball, and now they have a dunk, and now their momentum starting. So You really just have to stay mentally strong throughout that whole press.
A lot of guys will say that, right? Like if you foul enough, you kind of raise the bar for what they're willing to tolerate. And like you said, they can't call everything. So a couple of facts about this game. Eric, you played 60 minutes. And he just said it was a marathon bringing the ball up the floor. We'll get to it as we go throughout the game, but just how were you able to stand on your 2 feet at the end of 60 minutes, bringing the ball up the floor against the kind of pressure you just detailed?
Yeah, what's interesting about that is the fact that I have great stamina. I can run all day. I think Jack knows that. Whenever we would do running things, I could run all day. That was never an issue for me. The hard part actually was timeouts and stoppage of play. Like that was really tough because I think I would become so tired in those moments. So timeouts were killer for me. I hated the timeouts. When I got fouled, I had to go to the free throw line. I think that's why I shot maybe 6 for 15 or 18. I don't know. It was really bad. But
5 for 19 from the floor, 1 of 7 from 3, 3 of 8 from the line. There, I got your numbers.
All right.
The legs were beat.
Halfway, like after the first 10 games of the Big East season, Eric averaged 41 minutes per game, because he never came out ever.
That is interesting. We should look up to see if you averaged the most or more minutes than you could possibly play if you played all regulation games.
Yes.
The other thing was, and it was mentioned on this broadcast, this is the longest game, of course, in Notre Dame history, longest game in Big East regular season history. And they were talking a lot about, I think it was 2009, that famous Syracuse UConn game in the Garden. But just 5 OTs. I mean, I looked at the box score. The numbers are just insane, like you talked about. In any walk of basketball, and Jack, you can talk about this playing overseas. Maybe you've been in something, or whether it's high school. Have you guys ever played in a more memorable or unique game than this 5 overtime game, or is this the one that takes the cake and sticks out?
No, I mean, the only one that comes close, and Eric was in it too, was the Syracuse game. But other than that, I don't think nothing can touch this. Nothing. And I played in the finals in Italy. Nothing touches this. So it's just, no. No.
Not even close. The mood swings of this game, the downs, the feeling like we were totally out of it, to there were moments where I'm like, oh, we're gonna win, and then they hit a shot. It was too much, and I've never been a part of anything like that. Never. No.
All right, so let's get into it. What's funny is I have to admit I watched this game, but I skimmed through the first half and a lot of the second half.
So did we as a team. So don't worry about it, because we were getting blasted. So yeah, we skimmed it. It
was kind of a ho hum first half, and then I want to talk. Let's pick it up around 7 minutes left in the second, Jack, because I think it's going to be interesting to have you here with.
Yeah, I was going to say it's bold that you have me here when I literally sat as much as I watched more of the game than I played in.
You played in half the game, 32 of 65 possible minutes.
Yeah.
And I want to ask about that moment though, because I think it was you guys were down by maybe 5 to 7 points. There's 7 minutes left, and you're called for a foul. I think it was Kevin Ware that more or less climbed over your back, and then they managed to call the foul on you, and you were, I think, justifiably but also very visibly upset because they fouled you out at a really odd time in the game on an odd call.
Bohannon misses the jumper. Look at Ware literally over the back of Cooley. If it's on Cooley, he's out of the game.
Wow. I thought he climbed his back. He's some kind of athlete, though. You talk about a guy that can really fly to the goal. Where did you see the foul on Cooley?
That's a tough call.
Where did you see the foul on Cooley? I know I only got one eye, Mr. Schumann, but you take that.
I agree with you.
I mean, I don't see a foul on Cooley at all.
First, what was your reaction to the foul call? and then I'll ask you a follow-up based on like the team's mindset. But like when that happened, how frustrated were you?
Absolutely crushed, because as you said, that was just it was a big time in the game. It was a terrible, terrible call. And the funny thing about that foul is I played all 4 years at Notre Dame, and never one time has a ref ever admitted to a foul. And 2 games later, we had that same ref come to our game, and he called me over and he said, Jack, I rewatched it, and that last one, I'm sorry, I just missed it. And I was a good kid back then, so I didn't say anything smart back to him. I was just like, it's all right, it's fine. But I was irate at the moment, and we still won. But yeah, the mindset was not good, because it was just not good when I found out that people were not the happiest and not the most positive at that time. So that was something, man.
I mean, when I watched that and I saw you foul out at that moment, I thought you guys are down. Obviously, Louisville's a very good team. I was like, how are they going to win this game against Louisville? I mean, EA, how are you guys able to stay positive when you lose, a guy that's getting you a double-double, one of the best players on the team, and he goes out with 7 minutes left? How did you guys stay positive and not think, okay, now it's over, we got hosed?
Yeah, I think the initial reaction wasn't positive.
Eric, I think that you're like, Jack, after the game, you're like, when you found out, I thought we lost. Like, I definitely thought it was over. I thought you said that.
Up until that point, I know you may have the stats there, but Jack was playing very well in that game.
11-11, yeah.
Especially compared to Jerian wasn't doing anything at the time. Nothing. And I was mad at him all throughout that game. Until 30.
We'll get to him.
Until 36 seconds.
He did nothing. I wasn't playing well up until that point, especially. Pat really didn't do much until that moment. Obviously, Garrett Sherman didn't come in the game yet. Like, there was not much happening. So when Jack went out, one, he was scoring, he was getting rebounds. It was like, what do we do? And I love Tom Knight, but it wasn't going to be the same. But I know we Coach Bray does a good job of bringing us together and trying to help us to believe. We always talk about playing free and just going for it. I think that was literally the theme going into that game, going for it. And that is what he went back to and talked to us about, and that's what it was all about after that.
I gotta say, it's actually really refreshing to hear you guys say that it wasn't positive right away, and you didn't stay positive, and maybe took Coach Bray talking to you, or it took a while, because I think so often athletes go back and say, yeah, I just had to stay positive, or people assume that's the way to get through it, but sometimes you got to vent a little bit and get through it.
The way our teams worked was we had such a core that played so much that if like anything happened to that core, it was pretty, like, we were pretty shook. Like, that's why from our standpoint, this game was also so amazing, because like what happened doesn't happen at Notre Dame. It was just unbelievable.
So I'm watching throughout the second half, and I got to be honest, I took down a bunch of notes about like a Russ Smith runner with 1.5 minutes left, and then, getting a turnover in the backcourt and thinking, oh, that's the big play, when I think Connaughton got a steal and made it 5. But then they like hit Russ Smith on this inbound play with 1 minute left on this big run out.
Right up there with Marquette and Syracuse. And look at this. Breakaway. Home run pass. Smith the jam. Breakaway layup.
And it's, I think, then a 7-point game, and then Pat Connaughton misses an open. I'm expecting watching this like, okay, Connaughton's got the 3 with 50 seconds left. That's going to trim the lead, and he misses. So Louisville goes down and makes it 56-48 with 50 seconds left. I mean, I'd love to see the win probability numbers that they do now, like on that game cast, because it has to be over, 98% for Louisville, something like that. At this point, do either of you think there's any way you can win the game down 8 with 50 seconds left?
No, I mean, I was in the game, so no, not really. And I remember when this Russ Smith play you're especially talking about, because he's incredibly fast still to this day. I still keep up with him. I try to go foul him on that play. Like he like does a move, shakes me. I'm like reaching for air. He goes by me. I'm like, oh man, so we're gonna have to foul him. but he goes and shoots it. I'm like, okay, all right. We get the rebound. I'm like, we have a little bit of life. Pat misses it, so I'm like, life gone. It's like,
yeah. it was wild to watch.
yeah.
Man, so many memories of this game are just flooding back. Just emotion. Eric, you were so right. No game was ever as up and downy and ever will be that I've ever seen. I'm going through it again, man. This is stressful.
There's a lot of moments. So this is when the Jerian Grant show takes off. And again, I said I skimmed through the first and kind of made my way through the second. And they did it. The broadcast is great. Dan Schulman's great, but they were all over. They pointed out that he hadn't made a field goal until he makes this, just dribbles down the right side of the floor and really like an off balance kind of prayer running three.
Grant hits a three. Big three.
And really, there's a great video online that we'll link to in this. It's like the 28 seconds of Jerian Grant, but he effectively hits, and we'll cover it, but 3 threes and then gets an and one over the course of 28 seconds to tie the game. I mean, when you're watching that on the floor, and Jack, maybe I'll start with you on the bench. Like you're saying, it's unlike anything you've seen.
7-point deficit. Grant, a deep three from the wing. Another one.
Where's he been? Where has he been?
Oh, he did it again.
Where's he been? Oh, man. In one possession game. One possession
No
game.
timeouts, got a chance to tie it.
You think they want Grant to shoot it?
He's going to drive it and lay it in. And the foul.
And foul the old-fashioned way. And 4 of the last 5 have been OT, baby.
That sequence from him, the degree of difficulty, and then just, the sheer improbability of erasing that deficit. What do you remember watching him kind of single-handedly for those 28 seconds getting you guys back in the game?
Well, it's crazy, and Eric hit on it as why he was upset with Jerian, because we've seen Jerian in practice do so many stupid, amazing things. Like, because we play these games up to like 7, and there will be just some games where Jerian just scores 7 and the game just ends. And like we've seen him, so like it was either like if Jerian hit like 2 of them, Jerian's gonna hit the next 2 of them. Like he just went off. And from the bench, I don't know, you can see they have a broadcast of me jumping during that game when we're getting really excited. But, man, that was just a moment. And then when Wayne Blackshear tried to take a charge and was clearly in the circle, man.
Ill-advised.
That was just ill-advised. He's my friend, and he said Pitino was livid after that.
There's a lot of moments where Rick Pitino didn't look particularly pleased.
Yeah, the coconut water toss is a very good one.
You were on the floor. That was something I had highlighted here. Like when he tried to take the charge with 25 seconds left in a 3-point game, and now you're a coach. That's like the ultimate no-no. What was going through your head on that big and one?
All respect to Wayne Blackshear, but my first thought was, wow, that was done. Wow. Especially for somebody that's pretty athletic, just go for the block or something. So it just surprised me that he went for, and they don't, as a team, Louisville doesn't take many charges. So it was really just different. That's not what they do.
He was shook. The whole thing, he was just shook because Gorgie Jane kept missing free throws too. And like, it was a whole thing.
That's the thing. That's the thing I remember. They weren't missing many free throws.
Jang made 2, and then he missed those last 2. Yeah,
finally last 2. So that was the crazy part was, we were trading 3s for 2s for that entire portion, and that's something that you talk about, but you never really see. And when the shots Jerian were hitting, it didn't surprise me. Like Jack said, those are shots he makes. It was just the fact that, it's going in now at this time. Like, this is really big.
And it took 39 minutes for him to show up and do it. Yeah. We'll talk about it as we go throughout these overtimes, because Louisville effectively gets a chance to win the game in almost every overtime. And there's some questionable decision-making like you guys have alluded to, but I want to get your insight as guys that have played at this level, because it seems like things started moving really fast for Louisville and they had trouble making decision-making. Like you said, it's just a odd decision to try to take the charge there. Have you been in that situation where you kind of feel the game getting out of your control and you maybe start making decisions that aren't characteristic of yourself, and you do some things that you look back at and just go, I have no idea why I tried to take a charge in a 3-point game with 20 seconds left. Have you guys felt that on the other side before?
I think Eric and I collectively have nightmares over the season before that Xavier game where we had a 10-point lead and then all of us collectively absolutely forgot what basketball was and just didn't do anything. So it's definitely happened. But the crazy thing is Coach Bray always leans on his older players. So because we had that experience previously, it was so rare for us to make mistakes like that, like to get sped up. And the thing that really hurt Louisville is Peyton Siva, their floor general and an unbelievably smart point guard, fouled out. And Russ Smith had to lead the team. And now Russ Smith's forte is not leading a team. It is putting the ball through the basket at a high rate. It is not leading a team. So I think that really helped them getting sped up.
Yeah, it's a great – I mean, foul trouble obviously was huge on both sides. But like you said, when Pepe went out – sorry, I'm from Seattle. I knew him as Pepe. Sorry.
That's fine. I was at his wedding, so yeah.
Okay.
He's my boy.
Okay, nice. When he fouled out, I was like, okay, at least that's like an equalizer a little bit for when Jack went out.
Yeah, and that's the same thing my wife calls him too. So.
Oh, okay, great. We're all on the same page. I'll ask him why I didn't get the invite to the wedding. So when you guys tied it too, the other thing I noticed – that crowd, especially on the Jang free throws when they forced him, or he missed, but I think helped.
It's fired up again. It's not over yet. I think they like the chances with Jang on the line. See too much time in the clock to think about fouling him when he has the ball.
Is the luck of the Irish in the house tonight?
The leprechaun, man, he's playing.
Unbelievable.
What do you guys remember as you guys tied it, as you forced overtime? Maybe it's in the huddle. That crowd sounded like it was at another level. I mean, what do you guys remember about being in the building, specifically as you guys came back and forced OT at 60-60 at the end of regulation?
I know for me, I remember just thinking, when he missed the free throws, that Jerian was going to hit a three. I was like, Jerian's going to hit a three. And we're going to go to overtime. This is what's going to happen. When he missed it, we're gonna go to overtime. And for us, I know Jack believes it as well. And this even happened when I first got there, my freshman year. We always felt like if we got the game to overtime, we're going to win the game. If the game goes to overtime, we're going to win the game. And that's I know that was something that we always felt. We always felt that. If the game goes to overtime, we're going to win the game. So just getting there, that was all we needed for us mentally, and to look at each other and, feel like we're back to 0-0. We have a new life.
Yeah, the ironic thing about how loud it got during that Jang free throw was it was the loudest I've ever been in the gym. Was in Louisville when we played in that second overtime game, and this man here had to hit one free throw to win the game, and he literally missed the first, and I couldn't move, and I was like, Eric, it's okay if you don't make this, it's fine. And Eric was just blacked out. He didn't know where he was, so he just made the shot, and he made the second one. It was so loud, I couldn't move. Like, I literally was stunned. And Eric, I was like, wow, Eric's shooting the ball. Like, this is so impressive. And that was the loudest any gym. And Eric knows because they have like 6 whiskey bars in that arena, right? Everyone's blacked out. So that was the loudest it's ever been. And it's
by far the loudest gym. By far. The floor at that moment felt like it was shaking while I was on the foul line.
It got so loud it was quiet. Like, my ears shut off. It was that loud.
It's quite the facility over there. It's a unique place, like you said. So you get to overtime 1, and I'm watching it again, knowing what happens, but still wanted to kind of look through it all. Jerian fouls out with 2 minutes left, and I see you shaking your head.
Still mad. Eric's still mad because that was the dumbest foul ever.
Grant with 19. Looked like he had a shot. Passed it up. Connaughton misses the 3. Oh, and Grant is called for the foul. Smith really created the contact, and Jerian Grant has fouled out of the game.
Wow.
It's a foul that you take, especially it's like a European foul where you want to stop the break. Like, they're about to get going, and I have no fouls and I have 0 fouls on me, so I'm just going to take a foul. And that was the type of foul he took. And I remember like looking at him like, I can't believe you. What you just did, how amazing that was to how incredibly stupid this was. Like, it was like, yeah.
And it was one of those moments, he did it, and then he realized what he did. And he was like, oh, no.
And I think, weren't you sitting next to him on the bench for a good portion of this game, Jack? I think the two of you, I saw you guys sitting down together for a lot of the rest of the overtimes.
Yeah. And definitely during it, we went, man, we really left EA and Pat out there by themselves, didn't we?
I was going to say, that has to be the reaction, right? Like, why are you leaving me out here by myself? When you give that foul, like, at least have it be in a more admirable foul than the one 80 feet from the basket, right?
Exactly.
So he's gone now. So him and Jack are sitting watching on the bench. I have a note here that Pat at one point gets to the line down 2, 68-66, and ties it with 2 free throws. And I think he kind of has, as I watched through this, like a quiet but steady game. And he led you guys with 14 rebounds. Just talk a little bit about the impact that Pat had as a guy that was able to stay on the floor and play. I mean, I'm looking at it here. He played 56 minutes. EA. He's one of those guys that played nearly the entire game like you did. He had a big impact in this game, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that is Pat. You know, that's that line, and that is Pat. He's always, you know, worked quietly but very effectively. And it wasn't a surprise to me. You know, he rebounds his butt off. And he proved it, you know, the next 2 years at Notre Dame. I think he led us in rebounding my senior year, and, you know, continues to rebound the ball at a high rate now. But, you know, he makes shots. He makes plays, and he's a winner. He's always in the right position, literally always in the right position. I don't know a kid that's just always in the right position at the right time, doing the right thing. And that is literally the definition of Pat Connaughton.
So it was 68 apiece, like 44 seconds left. You guys tried to run the clock down. There's kind of like a weird shot clock situation where the ball gets tapped out. You save it. You kind of get one last chance with 3 seconds on the shot clock, and I think it's a violation. And they get it back with 12 seconds. And this is where you were talking about Peyton Siva being out of the game, because Russ Smith has 12 seconds to walk down the floor and take the last shot. And this was, to me, like one of the weirdest moments of the game.
Here we go. Will Smith take it himself? Down to 5 seconds here. Down to 3. He launches. And we're going double overtime. And Russ Smith and Rick Pitino are looking at each other. Pitino's yelling at him, like, what were you doing there?
He's furious.
It was as if he thought he had 30 seconds left, right? I mean, when you're watching him wind the clock down, he took like a 30-footer from the logo when he probably, like you said, should put his head down and go to the rim or do something. What was going through your guys' head as he kind of wound the clock and took what was, to me, like a kind of bizarre final shot at the end of the first overtime with a chance to win it?
Eric, were you guarding him?
We were in 2-3 at the time.
Oh, yeah, because everyone was exhausted. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
No, my thought process might have been in math. No, I think we're in 2-3. But my thought process was, well, that's Russ. I know he missed it, but he has a pretty high probability of making that shot too, and just walking off the court and acting like he's the man. So when he shot it, I was like, oh shoot, you know, that's a pretty ballsy shot to shoot. So you better have a lot of confidence in yourself to take that shot. And that is what his game was. So I was nervous. I was really nervous when he decided to pull that. I was like, whoa. So, but I was excited. You know, I was excited after, like, wow, that was a dumb shot after. But
There's a great shot when you guys get to the bench, and this is where I'd love to hear your input, Jack. Mike Bray hits Garrick Sherman kind of jokingly on the side of the head, who's checked into the game now.
We'll step aside. Double overtime on the way.
What were these huddles like? Because Mike Bray looks like he's having the time of his life as he goes from overtime 1 to overtime 2. Do you remember what these timeouts were like between overtimes, what guys were saying, especially as you said, some of the guys you usually rely on are on the bench. These huddles were probably pretty unique, but it sounds like it was also pretty loose. Just what do you remember?
I'll go first. And I think Coach knew he was playing with house money because Coach was so optimistic the whole time. He was like, guys, this is one of the most positive Coach Bray's I've ever. He was just so excited. He's like, we get to play more. Like, we get to keep going. We know we're going to be okay. Because he was like, Garrick checked in for the first time, like 45 minutes into the game. Like, that's when he checked in for the first time. And then he ended up having like 13 points or something crazy. So Coach was just like out of control, positive, over the top. And it worked because we were like, well, if Coach thinks we're going to win, then I guess we're going to win. Yeah. All right, cool. Like, everybody go do this.
He checked in the first overtime, to your point, played 22 minutes in the 5 overtimes combined and had 17 and 6.
Yeah.
We'll get to some of the big baskets. He has a huge one late, but he had an amazing performance. EA, you're probably sucking wind, but in those huddles, do you remember that same vibe? What kind of comes to mind between overtimes?
Yeah, I remember like running into the huddle, like that. Those moments of running in because I would see my teammates, excited, and I would see Coach Bray, fist pumping and things like that. But once I got to the bench and sat down, it was I don't remember. The only thing I do remember was if someone would like tell me a joke or something like that. Like I know one huddle, I don't know what overtime this was, maybe 3, 4, Garrick Sherman like looks at me and was like, man, I know we can't wait to go back and play Call of Duty right now. Right? And I was like, I can't wait, bro. I cannot wait. I just remember like trying to like, we were just talking about other like, because we were just so tired. It was basketball didn't make sense, but we were moving and trying to just make it happen.
Before you guys maybe look back at this, before we watch this, I mean, do the overtimes blend together? Do you guys have a hard time discerning what happened in which overtime, or do you guys have a pretty good recollection of this happened then as time's gone on? I mean, is it clearer or a little bit foggier when you get further away from this game?
I think it's a little – it kind of – like I remember every big play, like the B-Shite 3, Garrett's flip in, sideways jump hook, Russ's like ridiculous, stupid shots. I know there were like 3 of them. I mean, these are the things I remember, just the big key moments. But like in terms of you asked me which overtime they happened in, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, they start to kind of all blend together. Like I said, the big moments stand out. B-Shot's 3. Garrick's tipping that Zach puts his hand up and tries to.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that. That was unbelievable. Let's talk B-Sides 3 because that's coming up here in the second overtime. So you're in OT2. They're up 1, and I think Russ goes to the line and makes 2 free throws. First one like barely rattles in, makes the second one, then 25 seconds left. And EA, you kind of created this 3, so you can talk me through the play if you remember it. But you hit Cam Beachside, who's a freshman at the time, and he catches this left wing 3 and knocks it down with 15 seconds left to tie it. So this is like, if you include Jaren's 3, is like the 4th huge late second 3 you guys have managed to hit to keep this game alive. Just talk me through that play and just what that moment was like for him to force a third overtime.
Atkins. Big screen by Sherman, leveled by Hannon. Beachside might take it.
There's Mr. B-Side. Mr. B-Side can flat out shoot it. I'd get that kid more.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, coming off the screen. I was going the right side of the court next to our bench at the time. I think a big was on me. I think because they were switching everything at the time, which made them really, a very good defensive team because they were able to do that. especially when Jack went out the game. And I had to switch. I know I started to go left. I hesitated for a second. Luke Hancock stunted. He stunted a little bit too much. And as soon as I felt him a little too close to me, I kicked it over to Cam on that hash. And, you know, as soon as he caught it in rhythm, I believed it was going in. He's a really, really good shooter. And, you know, that moment was kind of, you know, meant for him in right there.
It was a massive shot. And Jack, I think you mentioned it earlier. This is when Patino, they get the shot of him just in disbelief as he throws the water bottle up in the air. Because again, late game, like don't allow a three, and they let you guys get a pretty clean look off to tie the game.
Yeah, because B-Shed being a freshman, probably on the scouting report, the only thing it said was shooter. Like, that was definitely the only thing it said. And he was probably like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, even if Atkins makes a shot, or it's like, you don't, like, it's a 2. You don't need to leave the shooter. Like, yeah, so he was probably just shook.
So it's 75-75 after 2 overtimes. The one thing I actually really enjoyed about watching this was sometimes you can watch OT, especially college OT with the shot clock the way it is, and the overtime scores can be like 4 and 5 points. But you look at the box and it's like 8 points, 7 points, 8 points, 10 points. Like there's baskets being made in all these OTs, big plays being made, and really not until the 5th does it become a lot of free throws. Like what I loved about watching this on both sides is like there's good offense and good basketball still being played. As Eric, I'm sure as you alluded to, like it was still pretty tiring, but you guys are still making plays out there. In the 3rd overtime, I had a note here for you. You made like a spinning floater.
Atkins, what a move! Terrific move, kept his foot on the ground. I thought he was going to walk in. He looked lost as he picked up his dribble.
And you were 2 for 13 from the floor before you made the floater. So surprisingly to me, the rest of the way, I looked at it. I mean, you were performing better offensively the more tired you
when
got.
You edit this, can you cut that out for my boy? You don't have to put my man on gas. Like this man got me first team All Big East my senior year. I can't let you do this.
I'll clip that out just for you, EA. How are you able to get better? That's what I was looking at. It's like somehow you were making more shots as the game went on and you got more tired. We're in 3 OT, and it looked like maybe you're being relied upon more offensively to create because guys are out. But it seemed like you were getting better. How were you doing that?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. It was the same thing that happened the previous year at Louisville. I didn't do anything basically the whole game. And then I did hit the shot to a 3-pointer to take the game to this first overtime. And then I really started scoring in the overtimes. So, you know, it was basically the same thing. You know, I really just got going late. I don't know why. I don't know why. You know, I do feel like the longer I play, the better I get. Just because, you know, I honestly believe in my head that I have the best stamina. So, you know, if I'm going to be out there, I can still play my game. And where everybody else can, you know, think about a whole bunch of other things, them being tired, different things like that. I can still play my game.
Jack, let me ask you this. Now we're in the 3rd overtime. Was there a point, because you've been out of the game for a while now, where you started to realize this is like a pretty special game that we're all a part of here? Is there a certain point along the way where you thought this isn't just a normal double OT game? We might be in for something pretty unique and special here. Does something stick out?
Well, it's just crazy because Eric said it, and now that I keep thinking back, there was just no time to think of like other things because this game was always just so many like haymakers of like, as you said, it was so high scoring. Overtimes aren't this high scoring, so this one every time like, oh, we're up 2, dang it, it's tied. Oh, we're down 2. Oh, we're up 1. Like it just kept being like, and I was still frustrated about the foul. An hour and a half later, I'm still frustrated. 7 years later, I still think about that. Russ took my head off, but like it was just such a crazy game. And after it was done, I realized immediately like that it was like that. But during it, it was just cardiac central. I take a 5-hour before every game. That had worn off, so I'm just running on fumes at this point. Like it was nuts.
Well, and you know what's interesting to point out, at this point in third overtime, it's probably close to midnight because we said the game started at 9. So it's almost the next day. It's almost February 10th. And I'm glad you mentioned the back and forth because on the broadcast, they mentioned right in this third overtime, I think it was 22 or 23 lead changes at this point in the third OT, which is just a ridiculous number. And like you said, it was back and forth throughout the overtimes. This is the only overtime until really, I guess, even the last one, you don't get it. But this is the one time, EA, that you guys had a chance to take the last shot in the third OT. I think you had the ball with maybe 15 seconds left and run it down. Now, hold on. Dick Vitale had your back here. I got your back. He thought you were tripped.
No timeouts for Notre Dame and a chance to win it. Chance to win the game. They didn't have this opportunity before, Dan. It's in their hands right now. Atkins. Oh, he got tripped. Louisville battling for it. It's a held ball, and it's going to go to the Cardinals. On the alternating possession on the arrow, Louisville's got the ball.
We can talk about whether or not you thought you were tripped. You guys had a chance to take the last shot, and you drove the lane, and you went down. I mean, 7 years later, do you think you were fouled? I know it's a tough call to make, tie game, 5 seconds left. What did you think about that play?
Yeah, in the moment, I definitely thought I was tripped. You know, looking at it, you know, I've watched that play before, and you know, if I wasn't me looking at it, I was like, wow, that's a really dumb play too. You know, as a coach now looking at it, I'm like, what am I thinking? Because I went kind of early, a little bit early, so they still had a chance to get a shot off, I believe. Yeah, I just remember being like, oh man, I think I lost it for us. But, you know, we still hang on, and then we give us new life going into the fourth overtime. And I think this is around the time where, at that point, I remember looking up at the time, because we have a time, like it says the time in the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember looking at the time and being like, wow, you know, it's really late. And it was a Saturday night, so like,
yes,
double whammy.
I said this. We can talk about that after the game, but
really affected the post game plans. I hear you. So this,
but I just remember.
Yeah.
I remember that any controversy on that thing, it was crazy because the way Eric ran the team, like you didn't like question things that he did. Like it's just like, oh, Eric's driving now. Like it's a good play. Like I just remember that play, and I was like, damn, it didn't work. Like we didn't score. Okay, it's fine. Like, it's funny that I didn't even think it would be a bad play. I didn't even think that. I'm thinking back. I don't even remember that play, honestly.
No, I can imagine it being a blur. Even as I'm looking back, and I watched it yesterday, I'm like, okay, did I have the right overtime here? Russ actually got one of his better looks off towards the end. I think it might have been a little late, but he had like a running three that hit the back rim. Much better than the first overtime chance.
And also so dangerous that he can fly up the court. There he goes. Overtime on the way.
On the broadcast then, between OT3 and OT4, Dick Vitale ran to the bathroom, and he comes back. You know, they've already started the fourth overtime. Like, he comes back a minute late. I thought that was one of the funniest things. I don't know if you guys noticed that. It seems like, Jack, you're aware of it. Like, did anybody notice that there was only one broadcaster there? I'm sure if you're playing, you're not checking on Dick Vitale, but that cracked me up when I was watching the game.
I'm serious, man. Can I run to the bench? Yeah, go. You got to do what you got to do, Richie. Great defensive possession right there, Dan. Wow. That's the first of my 34 years. You never had to go to the bathroom between overtimes before, huh? Never. And trying to find the one here is unbelievable.
On the replay, it was absolutely hilarious because it was all of a sudden he just like you don't even realize it, and then all of a sudden he comes back flustered, and you're like, I'm back from going to the bathroom,
and he's out of breath. It's like
and Twitter made sure I knew because Twitter reposted that all the time.
So the fourth OT, and again, this is when I was watching yesterday, and I was like, if you were somebody who watched this game in real time, there's just so many times when you would think that you guys would have lost. Like I go back to Jack fouling out. I go back to right before Jerian's big stretch. And then Louisville's had a shot at the end of every overtime. And now I'm looking at my notes here, and they're up 93-89 after Bohannon hits like a fall-away jump shot.
They will take the man-to-man out of the zone.
Bohannon. What a night.
He's been big. They've gotten to him in crucial situations, and he has delivered.
A career-high 26 points to go with 13 rebounds for Shane Bohannon.
With less than a minute left.
Bohannon, who had 30 that night.
Yeah, should we talk about what he did? He had an amazing game. Shane Bohannon, 30 and 15. I mean, the box score for Louisville is impressive too. I'm sure they don't like reliving this, but they had some good performances.
I love Scott Martin, but yeah, that was
that
was a game.
So I worked out with Luke Hancock after my senior year. We were at the same training facility, and we obviously talked about that game and how crazy it was and their numbers. I think even Luke had a really good game. Shane Bohannon was, to me, the best player on the court for the entirety of the game.
Yeah.
Like by far, he was hitting turnarounds. I've never seen him do some of this stuff. He's built like an ox. Like it's ridiculous. And they still can't believe what happened. Like to this day, they still can't believe what happened. And I'll talk about some more later about this.
What was crazy is then, again, because I remember we were talking about at end of regulation. I think you guys were down 8, and I saw Connaughton tee up a 3, and I'm like, this has to go in for them to come back. There's no way. Same thing here. You had a 3 that almost went in. It goes in and out. And I think this is Sherman that got the offensive rebound and somehow stuck it back in to make it a 2-point game.
Atkins forces it up. Sherman has it and hits again.
That's just pure guts right there. What a hustle play. What a hustle play.
If he doesn't get the offensive rebound and score with 30 seconds left, I think, again, the way this has gone, maybe you guys would find a way, but I think it's hard to imagine you guys coming back. So it's a 2-point game. And then this is the play, again, where Russ Smith breaks the pressure. And I feel bad. We should probably reach out to Russ and say, hey, man, we're not trying to blow you up on this podcast. But, again, it's just not the right decision to try to take a layup there, right?
Shot clock turned off. They'd rather not foul Smith, but they got to stop him. They've got it.
Looking out of control, Smith. And here we go again.
Wow. And again, Mike Bray will use a timeout. Again, you can't believe what you're seeing. The putback by Sherman. Smith driving the length of the court, taking a tough shot, didn't hit it, wasn't fouled. And look at Rick Pitino in the face of Russ Smith.
When you saw him, you guys can both talk about this. I thought he was going to maybe dribble to the corner, try to draw a foul. He just went all the way in a 2-point game with 20 seconds left, leading, and missed the layup and gave you guys the ball back. What was going through both your heads as that was all developing? I'll start with you, Jack, because you were watching on the bench.
Yeah, I remember just feeling like, God, this kid's. Yeah, man, we might need to send him like a gift basket because I just feel bad. But yeah, I was like, man, this is not like good. Like I don't know what he's doing. I just remember there were just so many bad plays he made that game that were like, but there's so many good plays to like keep them in the game that he made. But there was so like obviously you only highlight the bad, like you never highlight the good. And that play, I was just like, holy cow, man, what are you doing? And then I was just happy he missed it.
And then again, another time I was trying to foul him. He
right
that fast that he just literally ran away from me. And when he was running away, I remember thinking, "Oh man, this was a good game. Like this was a good one. Like he's gonna get fouled now. If he runs around, no one may catch him.
Right.
Like we're gonna waste time." And then, it's just he goes in and it misses the shot. And I'm like, wow, life again. And I think that those were the moments for us just to always say, like, wow, we have life again. And those kept happening, which was amazing. That doesn't normally happen.
So timeout from Coach Bray with about 20 seconds left. And this is the sequence where we have the tip in that tied the game. But I want to ask about the huddle first, because I know things maybe break down. But as you said, you guys have been through it all. And this is now, again, another huddle to maybe tie the game for us a fifth overtime. Do you remember anything in that specific huddle, either of you guys, before that last possession to try to tie the score that sticks out, or is it just a blur?
I got nothing. Eric, you got it.
I remember Jerian coming to me before we were breaking the huddle and was like, "You got this. You got to make it happen." And he would always talk to me like I was like he was Jordan and I was like Scotty, and treat like I was his little brother, even though I'm older than him. But he would like, God, this little guy. And I just remember, I mean, that's me and him's relationship. Not Jordan and Pippen. That's not our relationship, but you know, it made me laugh. I remember just like, all right, I got it. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I mean, I remember the play. I mean, it was because it was a side out. It was I'm not sure if it was a side out, but we ran top. I mean, that's the name of the call. Which we probably ran that for the 5 overtimes.
Because we had people in that didn't know all the other plays. They only knew top because they never played. Like Garrett during practice, just like was in La La Land most of the time, man. All he knew was top and post ups and just jump hooks, man. Like this man knew buckets and top.
He made those post ups pay off in OT. That is hilarious. So the play, I mean, you tell me, yeah, you were in the mix. I mean, you kind of drive the lane, ball almost goes out of bounds. August saves it, almost gets a hook to tie it, and then there's that tip in.
Trying to get it to B-Sharp. Atkins saved by August. Oh! Sherman knocked it in again! Sherman! Unbelievable! Oh, here come the Cardinals. Smith lost it. And we're going to a fifth overtime. Are you serious? 5 overtimes. Did they go 6 in the Big East tournament 2 years ago? Syracuse and Connecticut. 5 overtimes. Mike Bray. But you know, finally, look at the referees. Look at the referees. Look at the referees. Nobody can believe it. This is now officially the longest game in Notre Dame history, and we have to see that last basket by Sherman. I mean, Atkins lost the ball, just flat out lost the ball. Look at the save by August. He takes a very tough shot. Sherman once, and Sherman just got his hand on the ball.
We can talk about who wants to take credit for it, but just walk me through the play, and then I definitely want to hear Jack react about the August putting his hand up when I think Garrick had the bucket.
Yeah. I mean, again, I remember them switching everything, right? They switch everything, and they switch good defenders on you. I just remember, you know, just being down 2. I'm like, let me just try to get to the rim. Let me try to get to the rim. That's the best thing I could do. I know we have, you know, our bigs in there, Pat, Cam. You know, we're pretty big at the time, honestly. So if I can get it up to the rim, you know, that's the best case scenario. I lose the ball. I lose the ball. Zach saves it, sweeps through, and does his little running hook. And then the tip in happens. It was, and I don't think I even moved from the baseline at this moment. Like, I just watched it all like, wow. So no, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Jack, on the bench, you're seeing the tip from Sherman, which is crazy. And then August put his hand up. What went through your head? Did you ask him after the game if he thought he got the basket? What was the discussion like?
So much respect, because as a big man, those plays happen, and you need to make sure, because the scorekeepers don't know. So if you just put your hand up, and I told Zach this, because there have been times I stole, like Scott Martin steals so many rebounds. So on offense, if ever we tip him, I would always put my hand up and I'd get the rebound. So I told Zach, and he's like, oh, yeah. And to see him do this in the 4th overtime of the Louisville game, I'm like, man, this kid just knows what it's about, man. This kid just wants buckets. This is dope. This is so funny. He gets it, man. He gets it.
Oh, man. So, again, Russ Smith tries to win it at the buzzer. Kind of a desperation shot. Doesn't go in. So it's the fourth straight OT they've had a chance and haven't done it. This is a great shot where Patino takes his jacket off. It really feels like he's had enough at this point. I mean, it's just it's, again, as a college basketball fan, and they mentioned it on the broadcast, I started thinking of the Syracuse-UConn game in the Big East tournament. You know, I'm sure, I think it would have been right before you guys got to school, right? Maybe you guys were in high school or maybe first year. If that was 09.
Yeah, which Johnny Flynn was the greatest basketball player in the country.
Right. Pick him over Steph Curry.
Yeah.
You know, I know. And Rubio. That's when I think, and maybe you guys can speak to this, and I asked you earlier, Jack, like that's when you look at it like, okay, this is now going to be an iconic game, because I think the tip-in that was kind of towards the end and then it forces a fifth overtime. It goes back to like people are making shots. It's not all just missing shots late. In this final overtime break, is there anything, again, I know, it sounds like maybe you're thinking Call of Duty at this point. I don't know. Like, does anything stick out? Like, okay, we've got to wrap this up now. Like, was there anything different in that huddle that led to the final overtime for either of you guys?
I think Coach was just, I think this is when Coach brought up that if we win this game, it'll just be nuts. But then he also said, we can just keep doing this all night. And meanwhile, Eric's on like life support, like begging Skip to keep putting those salt Gatorade packets into his, like, so he doesn't die. And like Coach Britt's like, we can do this all night, boys. We can keep doing this. It's just like, he's like, but if we win it, it'll be something special. And we're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I wasn't thinking about really much he was saying in the huddle because I know he was keeping it so loose. And I'm not saying that to say I wasn't listening to him, but he was keeping it so loose that, he gave us a moment to, I think, for everyone to just regather their thoughts and calm down and just listen to him be not carefree, but just be free and talk positive to us. So that's the only thing I was thinking about. What's funny is, I know we're talking about this game. The harder game for me was Monday's game versus DePaul, which we go into double overtime. That was a tougher game for me. That I was super, super tired in. That was way tougher than the whole actually 5 overtimes because I didn't recover. Yet at all. Yeah.
I can only.
And there were no fans at the DePaul game, but then the 5 overtime game, this thing was packed, man. You could have played forever with those fans.
Yeah.
So it's 2.5 left in the 5th overtime, 98-98. Yeah, you guys have almost scored, 40. You guys didn't end up scoring more than 40 points in the overtimes and only 60 in regulation. 15 ties, 26 lead changes at this point. And this is where I keep going back to like your numbers being better in OT, EA, because you had the big buckets here with 2:05. You caught top of the key, made a nice runner to give yourself a 2-point lead. And
Connaughton, Atkins, floater, yes, Atkins played his heart out.
Really, too, you guys had I know it was back and forth, but you never had. This is the most I think you guys led in overtime when you got that lead and kind of held on the rest of the way. You mentioned Hancock. He made a nice spinning runner to tie it at 100. And then you got another big basket with like 120 left.
John, you want to get a moving screen, Sherman. Atkins splits the defense and lays it in. Terrific drive by Atkins. A veteran guard stepping up. His buddy on the sideline playing. He's elevated his game. Mike Bray is cheering like mad.
Those baskets in the 5th OT, what do you remember about them? How were you able to get them to go with the state of your body and a mindset at maybe 12:30 a.m.? What do you remember about those baskets?
I remember these baskets vividly. And not to sound cocky or anything, but I always tell people, some of my closest friends, I don't tweet this, but I don't get enough credit for scoring all the rest of the baskets in the 5th overtime. Like, obviously we won the game, but I'm like, I scored all the points to win the game. and everyone just talks about Jaren's points. I won the 5th overtime.
Oh, that's so good. That is so good. We will tweet that out.
Please let more people know.
We'll let them all know.
We'll make a hashtag.
You also then up 2 after the basket. Russ Smith, makes his way to the rim, and you slap the ball off his leg with a minute left to get it back. That too was a huge defensive play. That was a massive play in the overtime.
Oh, what a gutty performance. Smith driving. Notre Dame ball.
Irish have a chance here. Minute 4 on the clock. Nick Pitino with a timeout. Here's Smith trying to make something happen. The ball off his knee, goes out of bounds.
Listen, I know. Every time I watch the 5th overtime, I'm like, wow, this doesn't get talked about enough.
Eric, I could imagine you watching it just be like, man, I'm great. Like, honey, look how great I am. Like, look at this. Look at this defense right here. That won the game, not Jared.
No, seriously.
So let's humble him a little bit, because you went to the free throw line here in the 5th overtime and missed, I think, at one point, 3 out of 4 free throws that kind of kept them in the game. I will sympathize because you're in minute 60. I assume it's hard to keep the legs. As you were, and maybe Jack, you can speak to this, because you guys have been on the other side tying the game up, and now you have a chance to kind of close it out. When you were missing the free throws, or you saw missed free throws and Louisville still having a pulse, were you thinking, oh gosh, this is now their turn to kind of return the favor and force another overtime that probably shouldn't happen? Did that thought cross either of your guys' minds?
I don't know, because it was just weird that year. It's just like there were things like that team, that core, we didn't mess up situations like that. Like, as Eric said, we get it to overtime, we're just gonna make it work. We'll just do it. Like the year before, we had that Villanova game. We're down 16 at halftime, and we won it over. We just do it. I don't know how it is, but I knew that once we got a comfortable lead, we would be okay. We would just, because we're just so good at keeping comfortable leads, that we'd make it work. But Eric was in there. I don't know. I mean, maybe he just wanted to keep it interesting. That's why he kept missing. I don't know.
No, I have a knack for keeping it interesting in my career with missed free throws. But I was just so tired at that moment. In that 5th overtime, I remember being on the court and being like, the stoppage of play, I couldn't breathe during the stoppage of plays. But we were moving, I was fine. But the stoppage of plays were just so tough for me. So on the foul line, just felt like my body was shaking at times. I wasn't nervous. It was just I'm just so tired.
Yeah.
And I felt really bad about the missed free throws, but the momentum of the game, I didn't think that they were going to hit a 3 or somehow, take this to another overtime. It felt like we got to a point, even with my missed free throws, that we were somehow going to pull this out.
Yeah, and there were, I'm looking at it here. Montrezl Harrell missed a couple free throws, he airballed one with 20 seconds left. Russ Smith had a chance and missed a pair or split, and Pat split a pair. I think at this point, guys are just, like you said, on fumes. They had 10 seconds left, down 3, 104-101. Russ again tries a desperation 3 that doesn't go in. And this is where I'd love to hear from just both of you. When the shot missed, the game was over. It's an amazing image to just see the floodgates open and everyone storm the court. We go back to the beginning. Game day was there. There was a ton of hype and build up to the game. And then for it to kind of live up to it and really exceed it with that kind of audience. And you guys said it's the, most memorable game you guys have probably played in. Just take me back to that moment when you guys are on the floor being mobbed by the fans. Just what comes to mind when you think about that moment?
I don't let him shoot the 3. I don't let him shoot the 3. I don't let him shoot the 3. They got it though. Missed it. What an incredible game.
game that nobody who is here tonight will ever forget. The Irish win in 5 overtime.
Man, I mean, my first thought was, we did it. You know, not just won the game, but we made this a classic. Like, this is automatically a classic. You know, and especially for you know, we said it was a game day game. Like, that is what they want. You know, game day wants a good game. You know, at the end of the day, and a lot of the times those games don't live up to the hype. You know, they're over. You know, just a 10-point win, things like that, and you know, no one thinks about it. But 9 p.m. game, 5 overtimes. I remember thinking as they rushed the court. Wow, like, we lived up to the billing.
Yeah, I mean, it's this weird because the court rushing, like the Syracuse one you expected, but this one, like, if we would have won in regulation, it wasn't a court rushing, but then it becomes a 5 overtime. We're watching this game on ESPN Classic for the rest of forever. Like, you know, that, as Eric said, it's just that type of game. I mean, and the way it happened, where the underdogs on our team, on our bench, just come off and just pop off and everyone goes crazy. And just like, as he said, like, we won this game. Like, it's over now, because we have just been so, like, never getting too high on anything that good happens, that just for it to, like, we won, to, like, release and just actually be like, okay, I can calm down now. Like, it was just unbelievable. And the post-game interviews had some fantastic quotes from everyone involved. It was a great day.
Yeah, I mentioned the article I read was written the next day, and I had the date wrong on the game because the piece got filed at like 1 a.m. But I'll link it in this because, like you said, there's some amazing quotes from everybody involved. I know, Jack, before we started, you mentioned the post-game situation. You guys were, you know, probably at the facility until close to maybe 1:30 or 2. Just what was post-game like? How did it affect the rest of your night, the rest of your week? I know you were upset that or maybe not upset, but it was interesting how late that game went.
I mean, usually on our Saturday night victories, we all have our own pretty similar traditions of just going and enjoying ourselves like responsible college students. And that night, I remember we got out of the post game and it was like 1:30 and the bars closed at 2, and we're all like, "Oh, what do I do now?" So it was nuts. And I remember the post game pressers were like, the media members were all mad because they had to be there forever, and like it was just a whole mess. Like, the questions they were asking were good, but like some of the guys just wanted to go home. It was just a whole mess.
It's as someone that works in broadcasting, when there's a 9 o'clock game, everyone's already kind of a little bit disappointed that it might take longer to get home. And then I can only imagine everybody being like, wait a second, we stayed an extra 2 hours. But I think that, like you guys said, nobody will forget it. I think that just listening to you guys talk about it, it sounds like an incredible experience. How often, just out of curiosity, do you guys chat amongst each other about this game specifically? Maybe not just you two, but like with guys that were on that team, or even like, it sounds like guys on that Louisville team who you guys were tight with.
Yeah. You know, like, I've become that Louisville team. I think me, Jack, I know Jerian, those we're close with those guys now. Like, I think we've created a bond out of, you know, the rivalry and how good our games were. You know, I can talk to, every time I see Peyton Steve on Twitter, I comment something funny, or Russ or Luke, like all those guys, you know what I mean? I follow all of them on Instagram, Twitter, and everything like that. Like, you know, when I talk to, I mentioned this earlier, Luke Hancock about the game, you know, that is their last loss of the season. That is their last
Damn
loss.
right it is.
And if you think about it, you know, that's their last loss, and we know that.
Say it.
Yeah, I can do math.
Say
I can
it.
do math. Yeah,
Say it.
yeah.
Say it. And since they had to vacate the championship, that makes us reigning champ. Eric, oh my God.
So you're saying there should be a banner ceremony next year?
Yeah, our name should be in the rafters.
I think it's awesome you guys stay in touch with those guys. I think that it obviously is probably less fun to be them because they're on the wrong side of it. But I imagine even if you lose in 5 OT, you can appreciate how incredible of a moment you were a part of. I appreciate you guys doing this. This was awesome to hear you guys look back and reflect. Jack, listen, man, I'm sorry you fouled out. I'm glad the official apologized a couple weeks later. But that's
the good
tough.
news is maybe if I didn't, we don't win. So who knows?
Excellent point.
Who knows what happens? See, you got to look at the positive side. I'm still mad, but you got to look at it like that.
EA, I will make sure that we properly promote this to make sure that everyone is aware that you won this game and not Jerian Grant.
Thank you.
If you want to send me a synergy clip, Eric, I'll tweet it out from my account so it doesn't look like you're doing it. I'll do it.
I will. My buckets and defensive stop, and then, I need to find a picture of someone holding me up. I know I have it from the previous year, but we're gonna change it over and then add my jersey. I'll be right there. That'll be it.
I'll gas you up. Don't worry, so you won't look cocky. I'll do it.
That's a great teammate right there. Guys, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Coach, help me out here. How do you describe what just happened tonight?
I guess it's fitting we play overtimes with these guys. I'm so proud of my team. Everybody played, everybody contributed, and many times we looked like we lost it. What a fun night in here.
Coach, there was one point in the game where I wasn't sure y'all were going to get to 50 points. You end up over 100. What was the difference down the stretch?
I think our toughness. Garrick Sherman came in, gave us minutes. How about Jerian Grant getting us back in the game? We got to 100 because we played an extra game.
Coach, you were laughing. It seemed like you were having a good time.
We were having fun. It was awesome. We were enjoying it, and memories of a 4 overtime game at Georgetown a couple years ago, but great win.
That's no big deal. Now, Coach, what does a win like this do for your program at this point in the season?
Well, you know what? It still only counts one Big East win.
Are you sure?
But it's a very good one. We need some rest tomorrow.
Go get your rest, Coach.
Thank
I'll
you.
let you. Good luck getting out of here.
You have been listening to an official Notre Dame Athletics podcast presented by Fighting Irish Media.